They also represented a day in which we had forecasted a set of conditions day ahead, and the actual conditions ended up being a lot higher because the temperatures were a lot higher, and that was particularly September 9th. We also looked at a winter day, and we will leverage further winter days as we get into the winter assessment. This assessment, we focused our attention more around the summer conditions. So, as Katie described the hydraulic analysis, we chose these days and we provided these days as inputs to the gas company's hydraulic analysis. And they basically played back these days. And they played back the day in the sense that they looked at what was scheduled in terms of forecasted schedule of meeting the gas demand, and then they did a hydraulic analysis of the actual day based on the actual demand. And what we were looking for was, were there operational issues on the gas side that would result in potential needs to curtail gas because operationally they would not be able to manage the pressures, the gas pressures in the system. Two of the days, September 16th, 2014 and July 30th, 2015, did not show there was a issue in terms of operating the gas system. And the reason they didn't show there was an issue is because there was a good match between what was scheduled gas and the actual gas demand. On the other hand, September 9th, 2015 and December 15, 2015 indicated that operational challenges would exist without Aliso Canyon. And those days were highlighted by the fact that there was larger mismatches between the scheduled gas and the actual gas demand. And it was really that result that really led us to conclude that this is not just a capacity issue. There is sufficient capacity on the system, pipeline capacity, there was sufficient storage capacity on these particular days, even without Aliso. But the fact that the gas did not get scheduled into the system created the condition that then led to a potential operational challenges in the gas system that then led to the conclusion that the gas company, these would be days that we would potentially have to curtail gas. In a gas curtailment condition, electric generation is the first to get curtailed, okay? And it's not that it has not happened in the past. For example, on June 30th, 2015, even with Aliso Canyon, there was pipeline work that occurred and there was a gas curtailment to the system. And the ISO had to shift approximately 1,600 megawatts of supply outside of Southern Cal gas system in the LA Basin in that particular event. And we were able to manage that, but it stretched our ability. The analysis, the gas analysis, did assume certain things. It assumed that Aliso Canyon was unavailable, so we did not rely on Aliso Canyon. It assumed all other systems were in place, planned, and there was no unplanned or planned outages on the gas system. It fully utilized Honor Rancho, Lagalito, and the other storage facilities except for Playa del Rey, for meeting the forecast demand of gas. Playa del Rey was not used for meeting the forecast demand of gas, but it was used in the way that it would operationally be used. It was a reserve. And as a reserve, it was used in the simulations to meet the actual demand when the simulations indicating there was gas pressure issues arising. And so Playa del Rey was used in the simulations in that way. Ultimately, the gas company has to restore, as they go through the day, the gas pressures will deplete, and then they have to get the gas pressures back up to prepare for the next day, because you have day over day hot temperatures and high utilizations. A couple of points to be made. Gas generation in Southern California and the Southern Cal gas system in the summer accounts for approximately 80% of the gas use. The core in the summer is about 20%. This kind of flips in this winter. In the winter, the core residential, commercial customers account for about 80% of the gas use, and the electric generation is only 20% because the electric loads are lower during that time. I point this out because for the electric system, we're peaking. We're using the maximum use of the system in the summer. In the case of the gas company, they consider the summer condition as kind of their non-peak period because their core customers are lower, but even though their electric generation is higher, the total demands are lower in the summer. So it's the point at which they start taking more of their maintenance outages on pipelines and other storage facilities. If you go to the next slide, slide 10, what the analysis highlighted is 3 points of risk. One is, and I mentioned it before, when the flowing gas or the scheduled flowing gas fails to meet the actual demand. And that is a result of not just people will procure gas, but they may not procure enough gas to meet the total demand. Even if they have every intent to meeting the actual demand, we have forecast error, okay? And we can, a day ahead, we could still forecast a set of conditions on the electric side, and temperatures are 2-3 degrees higher, and the electric demand is much higher than we expected. That draws even more gas at that point, and we have to be prepared, or that creates a condition that can also create this difference between scheduled flowing gas with every intent to be balanced and the actual gas demand. The second risk is this notion of planned and unplanned outages. And I indicated before that during the summer condition is when the gas company is doing their maintenance outages. And as a result of that, there's a greater risk to impacting other capacity, whether it be pipeline or storage capacity. The third risk is if you're in this condition at the point where you have this larger mismatch between gas demand and actual gas, forecast gas and the actual gas demand, and you have these other underlying outages in the system, and you're already jeopardized or stressed on the gas system, a large ramp of the electric generation can further stress the system. And ramps of generation are normal, okay? They happen during the evenings when we have our evening load pull. We have it as the sun goes down and our solar production has to be replaced with our other generation. And we have, during the days, we have the need to be prepared for contingency events. And if we have a contingency event of a large resource, we may have to ramp a large set of these resources to be responsive and make up that difference. So those are the risk areas that the reliability assessment identified. On slide 11, we boiled down what the magnitude and the frequency of the gas curtailment risk was to the system. And effectively, from the gas analysis, after they overlay their potential outages and we looked at the historical differences between scheduled gas or forecast gas and actual gas demand, there were 16 summer days that there was potential risk of gas curtailment identified for 2016. 14 of those days, the magnitude of the gas curtailments could be great enough that it would exhaust the electric system's reliability, both the California ISO and the LA DWP's balancing area's ability to shift electric supply away from the LA Basin and the greater Southern Cal gas system to other sources. We can, in real time, we only have a limited ability to shift that supply around. You start running into conditions where you have import limits on other transmission lines, and you potentially have a lack of supply. If it's hot across the West, there may be a limited amount of electric supply coming from other systems. And I think I want to point out that this is not just an LA Basin issue. If the Southern Cal Gas had an issue that started as a gas pressure problem in the LA Basin, they may start managing it, and the issue can spread to other parts of the Southern Cal Gas system.
How far?
There could be generators across the Southern Cal Gas system that could potentially get curtailed.
You know, these gas pipes are integrated all together for how far?
They are integrated. The Southern Cal Gas system is integrated. They have multiple import points, and they are integrated, and they use different compressors and gates to transfer the gas within that integrated system. So it can be all the way down into the San Diego area potentially, and all the way up to the northern part of the Southern Cal gas system.
Which is where?
But, yeah, just trying to get an idea in terms of boundary, geographically, what are we talking about, Fresno?
No, I don't think Fresno would be affected. It would be something south of the, you want to take the,
Yes. I'm Roger Schwecke, Vice President of Transmission.
You have a mic?
Hello, I'm Roger Schwecke, Vice President of Transmission and Storage for SoCal Gas. Our service territory extends all the way to Fresno, all the way down to the Mexican border, from the coast all the way out to the east at the Arizona-California border, and up along the coast all the way to San Luis Obispo.
So is there a chance that there could be some kind of imbalance there, impact that far away?
The system is dynamic in nature, and it's dynamic in nature from a couple.
No, I understand there are
Yeah.
gates and everything like that, but if there's an area that experiences excessive use, where you have unexpected use, and what would happen to the people that are drawing that energy?
So we do have a situation where what we call is a localized curtailment, where you have a sudden demand or a large increase in demand or an outage in the pipeline system in a localized area. And then there would be localized curtailments to those customers. We experienced it in the San Joaquin Valley a couple of years ago, where we had someone dig into a line of ours that we had to shut out some of the customers. So that's a localized issue. You deal on a localized basis. Then you have system entirety issues. As you start in one area, if it continues to spread, then it could spread across the entire system.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just stress that? Because I think, Mr. Chairman, you made a really important point. There are some of us, Mr. Randolph, who've been through this, and we've seen perfect storms before. They exist. And so I think your point's well taken, that this could, in fact, depending upon a series of circumstances, in fact, affect the entire system as geographically outlined. I think that's a fair statement.
Thank you. Please, you want-
so again, summarizing, we did identify 14 summer days that would be potentially at risk based on the magnitude of the potential gas curtailments and the ability for the electric systems to absorb those magnitudes of gas curtailments. Those 14 days are highlighted by the fact that those days would be days in which there's a larger mismatch between scheduled gas and the actual gas demand, overlaid with potentially other outages on the gas system, whether it be pipeline outages or outages to other storage facilities in the system.
Why were those days picked in particular?
The 4 days that were analyzed were picked, as I indicated earlier on, where they were peak days. They weren't extreme days, okay? They were typical days from previous years. We did not do an analysis to try to determine whether we would be good for a 1 in 10 or 1 in 35 year event. We used a previous year's actual, which is a kind of a more typical type of condition.
What just doesn't account for the perfect storm scenario.
It does not.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to
That's me.
Ed
Yeah.
to talk about more about the action plans. Before you get into that, I will highlight for the California ISO, we're taking this very seriously. And yesterday we filed tariff changes to our rules at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to change and adapt our rules to better coordinate the electric and gas system and allow us to limit potentially use of the transmission system into the system to provide reserves, and also limit the amount of gas potentially used in the Southern Cal gas system that would otherwise have been economically dispatched. We are basically putting a constraint around that to minimize the risk of driving potentially the gas system into one of these high-risk conditions.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Again, Edward Randolph with the California Public Utilities Commission. So the next two slides I will go over along with Michael Webster from LADWP. So once the task force came to the analysis and the realization of the risk of curtailment this summer, the next step was to start identifying how to mitigate that risk, and in an ideal world, completely eliminate that. Initially, we identified 18 measures that can be taken. I'll go through the list in a second, but just a couple high-level observations on that. First, this is by no means an end-all to be-all. Actually, I said 18. There's now 19 items on the list.
What's number 19?
Number 19 is exploring battery storage more. And so in response to the comments we've received along the way, both very publicly and then some people walking down the street saying, hey, I have an idea, this list has and will continue to expand on it. It's also important to note that out of the 19 items on this list, only 2 actually involve the use of Aliso Canyon. The other 17 so far are about changes in how the system operates overall or about conservation to reduce the reliance on Aliso Canyon. So with that, I'll go through the list. And I'm not going to go through item by item. We've broken it down into broad categories to address the problems. And if you'd like to get into specific detail on any specific item, I'm happy to do that. The other thing to note as we go through this is, and I think we're can share this after the hearing too, so folks don't have a sense that we prepared a list and then stopped. We do have, between all the agencies, ongoing coordination, list tracking, all the steps forward on all of these. And I think if you go through the list, you'll see pretty substantial forward progress, if not close to completion on all the items. So with that, in the broad categories, the first set of categories is prudent use of Aliso Canyon. And the key issue in that is going to be how we use the 15 billion cubic feet that are in the field now. Until injections can be reinstated, 15 is all we have. That's going to be key to mitigating and eliminating curtailment on a peak day. So we need to make sure that gas stays there and is only used, in the event of an extreme curtailment event. The staffs of my division, the ISO, SoCalGas, LADWP, and CEC are all working together right now to develop some protocols that will allow for, will drive the decision on a given day on if you can withdraw gas from the field or not. That way you don't get to that day and start having a debate over whether or not it's the critical day or not. The next set of issues in there are tariff changes. Those are tariff changes for how SoCalGas operates their system and some tariff changes that Mark's already alluded to on what the ISO does. The tariff changes are all aimed at better operating the system and to get at that issue that Katie identified where there's capacity in the pipeline, but the non-core customers haven't brought enough actual gas in the system to meet demand that day. Initially, PUC had made a proposal to change the daily balancing rules. So all the non-core customers required to balance their load, their demand and their load over the course of a day versus a month, which is the current rule. The parties came up with an alternative proposal that we think works just as well. They've submitted that. That's being considered at the commission right now, intended to be voted out in a decision in an early January hearing. All of these rules get to that better coordination of the system, knowing that on most of the days that there'll be an issue, there's capacity and we need to make sure there's gas in there. The next set of curtailment or mitigation measures or operational coordination, largely aimed at making sure there's good coordination between the gas generators, the ISO, and the gas utility. A key example of that would have been last year in June. There was a curtailment event that almost led to some electric curtailment. After that, the utilities and the ISO began talking a lot more so that if there is gas curtailment, there's better understanding of which generators are the most important to the electric system. And you're potentially curtailing the generators that the electric system can remain stable even if they're off. A number of items on that list.
Mr. Chairman, before you leave that, can I ask Mr. Randolph a question
Sure,
with regard
absolutely.
on the operational piece? Because, I mean, those are easy things to say on the surface, but what processes, how do you make those determinations? How do you compel Southern California Gas? I mean, you can say, oh, we had a discussion, but do you have any procedures? Do you have any processes, guidelines to make that determination, specifically with respect to the operational piece? Because that seems to be where the rubber meets the road.
I think there's two levels to that. For issues such as the coordination on when they're going to withdraw gas on a certain day or not, that'll likely be followed up with a letter from our executive director as a specific order. If need be, in each one of these we do on a case-by-case basis, depending upon what authority has been delegated to the executive director in the past. If it hasn't clear authority, that then gets ratified by the commission to create the clear authority on that, so it's operationally enforceable. As far as the coordination on what plants are curtailed, I'd actually leave that to the ISO. Since
But it's really about how do you compel them to do that? I mean, you're telling me that the executive director and the commission is going to make a determination as to what choices are going to be made, who lives and who dies, basically?
Oh, no, that's a slightly different set of issues.
Yeah, and that's the operational piece.
Well, the operational piece there is when you're talking about if you're going to start doing curtailment. If you're going to start doing electric curtailment, that system's in place and has been approved by prior PUC rules. And the way the electric curtailment works is, I'm sure you very well remember, but for other folks' sake who haven't seen an electric curtailment in some time, is the utility doesn't just shut off the whole system. They've divided their system into what are referred to as blocks. These aren't city blocks; they're much bigger than that. And if they get an order from the ISO that they need to shed load, is the term of art for it, that they will shut off usually for an hour to a block of customers. And then after that hour is over, if they need to continue to shed load, they'll bring that block on and another block off. The predetermined blocks that have critical infrastructure, such as hospitals, fire stations, those sorts of infrastructure that we want to maintain power to no matter what, those blocks are exempt and don't get curtailed.
Thank you.
Okay. And then that's a good segue, actually. I'll hand it over to Mike Webster to talk a little bit about what LADWP is doing on their operational flexibility.
Good morning, Mike Webster. I'm the Executive Director of the Power System for LA Water and Power. Thank you for having us here and having this hearing. So LA Water and Power, not only are we a balancing authority, but we're also a utility. And I want to talk a little bit about specific actions we've already taken and continue to take to help mitigate some of the risks. The first is that we have curtailed any physical natural gas hedging. Normally, as a utility, we would try to stabilize our costs, purchase natural gas, but we wanted flexibility. So we have stopped purchasing natural gas, allowing for maximum flexibility this summer, so we're not making those commitments on a forward basis. The second thing we're doing is we are also going to stop economic dispatch. Normally, we would dispatch our system for our customers in the most economic way possible. But what we're going to do is we are going to change the way we dispatch the system to maintain maximum flexibility. So should there be a gas curtailment, we can use our other resources to the maximum extent possible, and hopefully we can mitigate potential blackouts that could occur this summer. But it's really important for this early actionable information. The gas company has got to communicate the risk so the utilities can start configuring their system so that we're ready. They cannot surprise us, otherwise we can't respond fast enough. The other thing that we're doing is we're also stopping our forward sales. Normally, LADWP would be making sales into the western United States on a forward basis. We don't want to put that burden on our natural gas generation. So we're stopping those forward sales starting, we've already started and we will continue to do that through the rest of this summer. So those are economic costs that LADWP ratepayers will need to bear as we shift costs from one utility to the electric utility. And that's important to know. So additionally, we are owned by the citizens of Los Angeles. We are their utility, so we are partnering to the greatest extent possible with our customers. And we do this in a variety of ways. We are instituting demand response programs. Now, we were planning to do 40 to 45 megawatts demand response, and we are upping that to 60 megawatts this summer. And because of all the dialogue that's happening at the state and the local level, we're seeing more and more customers come forward to say, we want to be part of the solution, we want to participate. So we are working very diligently to get our customers engaged in our demand response programs so that we have a place to go should we be in a situation after curtail. They can curtail processes in a much more sustainable manner. So we're working with them on that. We're also working on energy storage. We were planning to do 1 megawatt this summer, and we're trying to up that to at least 5 megawatts this summer.
Of electricity.
Yes, battery storage.
What about gas?
There's been discussions about gas storage, and while we have looked at gas storage, there are some significant permitting issues. There's a significant risk of moving gas storage into what we would call disadvantaged areas where our power plants are. And there's also a shift in responsibility from a system that LADWP has helped pay for with the gas company for the last 30 years. They've designed their system to meet our needs to shift that storage requirement onto utilities. That's a policy call that really needs to be addressed in a full manner.
Well, it's a policy call. I agree. But, I mean, without a plan, you can't have a policy. My question remains, and I wasn't here for the entire duration of this report, but I still haven't really heard concretely whether the Aliso Canyon facility is outdated, or is it still a workable, is it still workable infrastructure? Is it reliable enough that we can invest into keeping it running as our next best option? But I mean, given the fact that we've developed around it, given the fact that we've had this incident, it creates, a lot of questions that need to be answered. Do we move forward with Aliso Canyon? Is that the future of our state? I mean, Roger, you're probably best equipped to answer that, but.
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to state that, we've been working with the agencies, not in just these last several months, with the CAISO, CEC, CPUC, and LADWP on the integration between the gas and electric system side. And the work that was put together in the technical assessment and the action plan, I mean, we're fully supportive of that. We believe the results of both that assessment and the action plan are reasonable on the possibility of what can happen this summer. If you look at Aliso Canyon from the standpoint, is it operational? It can be operational. We believe so. The infrastructure itself is something that we're going through the process.
Is that belief based on, scientific evidence, though?
From our standpoint, it's based on engineering evidence and the design. You have to remember, you had a storage facility that was operated first as an oil field that basically held that oil for millions of years. So the integrity of the reservoir itself is, sound and can be used for many more years to come. What we have to look at and what we're moving forward, not only with the new regulations from DOGGR, but also SB 380, in taking the infrastructure to use that reservoir, such as the wells themselves.
How far is that facility from San Andreas Fault?
I would not know. It's quite a ways from the San Andreas Fault.
2 miles?
No.
It's right next to the Northridge Quake, which was perfect.
Okay. I know it's close, but I don't know the exact distance, whether it be 2 miles, 5 miles. So is that cause for concern?
Well, I think anytime you would have a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, I think entire California would be concerned. We basically experienced the Northridge earthquake back in the 90s.
But this is also the state's largest gas reservoir.
Yes, it is. The largest reservoir.
That would definitely add to a calamitous event if we had a leak of a large magnitude that could probably be planned for in another way, either through a different location or a different facility to contain it above ground.
This is Mark Rossi, if I could. I think there's no doubt that this was an unexpected event for this summer. And I think if we want to move away from the reliance on this field, it's going to take a plan and design to do that. It was designed this way, in an integrated way, to get here. I think the situation has highlighted the vulnerability of the integration of the electric system and the gas system and some of these large gas facilities. I think now we're at that point where I know for the California ISO, we're looking at going forward, what are options to going forward if Aliso was not available. I think as part of the proclamation, we have to look at what the possibility is of what the options are, design options in the plan, if we wanted to move away from reliance on the Aliso Canyon. So I just want to point that out from a longer-term perspective. This assessment was really narrowly focused on what do we do for this summer? What are the vulnerabilities and the
Yeah.
risks for this summer?
And that's what this committee's about, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But